WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at University of Detroit Mercy. UDM's Master of Business Administration is designed to accommodate the career needs of professionals across a variety of work organizations. More information at business.udmercy.edu.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Nick Austin. Today on the program, the city of Detroit has a new budget after it was approved by City Council. So what does that mean for the city? We'll find out a little bit later with Councilmember Fred Durhal.
But first, April 10th marked the start of this year's Black Maternal Health Week. This week highlights the work being done to create equity within the healthcare system regarding Black maternal mortality rates. According to the Center for Disease Control, Michigan ranks 23rd nationally in Black maternal mortality. Dr. Michael Genord is the president and CEO of Health Alliance Plan, or HAP. He is also board certified in obstetrics and gynecology. He is the only physician CEO of a health benefits company in the state of Michigan. Dr. Genord is here to talk more about Black Maternal Health Week and ways to improve outcomes for Black families. Dr. Genord, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. What an important discussion we can have this morning.
Exactly. And Michigan stats on Black maternal mortality are not great at all. They ranked, like we said, 23rd nationally. So what does this number indicate?
Yeah, I think it really shouts out inequity for a lot of young women seeking or failing to seek prenatal care for the health of their child. And Henry Ford Health and Health Alliance Plan have been in the forefront of really trying to reach out to these individuals earlier in their pregnancy and wrap around the appropriate resources to help them get into care early and throughout, and even after the birth of their child in their postpartum period.
And, you know, of course, we heard about the 23rd, ranking 23rd nationally in that number, Black maternal mortality. But Detroit is also 3 times as high. Of course, we have a larger Black population in the city of Detroit, but those numbers are staggering to be 3 times higher than the national average. So what are some of the factors that are adding to that in the city of Detroit?
Yeah, and more importantly, 60 to 80% of the infant deaths are preventable. I mean, this is just an alarming number, and certainly a whole group of people are committed to it. So here at Health Alliance Plan, you know, we partner with things like the Women Inspired Network of Detroit, which is a group of people that wrap support around pregnant women. They put pregnant women together as a cohort with, community health outworkers and really hold their hands throughout the process. And, you know, remarkably, we see, you know, a significant decrease in NICU admissions, decreases in preterm birth, and low birth weight babies when we are able to engage women in their journey of delivering a child.
And I hear what you're saying. You know, I think about just making or practicing, especially within the healthcare system, just a kind of a getting ahead of the thing. I can't think of the name of it right now in my brain, but just making sure that you're or attacking the situation before it gets too far along, before it gets to be a problem. So in what ways or what steps do you all take early on with moms, especially young moms who may not know certain things about their bodies? What are some steps or some things that you tell young moms early on in their pregnancy?
Right. So here at Health Alliance Plan, we have a home maternity service program. So early on, we're looking for indication that one of our members could be pregnant or they're seeking out care. We make sure we align them with a physician support that's, you know, accessible for them and handy. We can wrap care managers around them. We even partner with a national organization that has a technology solution where we can keep in contact through their digital devices about group classes, telehealth, making sure reminders of the different milestones within their pregnancy and the importance. But, you know, it's not all on the hands of women. I think that, you know, me as a physician who practiced 20 years, we have to get rid of our unconscious bias. There's plenty of research of women of color when they talk about pain or bleeding or other things like that. They're discounted at a rate differently than people of non-color. So I think that it's incumbent not only on our patients reaching out, but also us providers in the community wrapping around this community support and being very conscious of those things.
Dr. Genord, I think about, of course, what you just said and just making sure that, patients know how to advocate for themselves, patients know how to speak up for themselves, and patients know how to navigate the system. But it's also important, like you were saying, to have the healthcare system kind of on their side as well. I know that in the past and even now, a lot of the numbers and a lot of the tests that are taken aren't not necessarily for African American or Black women. So in what ways can the healthcare system improve on their end in order to impact and reach Black moms and moms of color?
Well, I definitely think in the obstetrics and gynecology world and the, awareness programs going around the city of Detroit and beyond, raising our own standards and, taking intentional efforts to understand our unconscious bias and live into women. But I really think this community health outworkers and working with these pregnant moms, to your point, to really advocate for themselves, they can't be discounted when they have problems of pain or discomfort or hypertension or food insecurity or an unsafe place that they're staying at. We as a healthcare providers have to pause and find ways to help and support these women and get them connected to community resources that'll help them be successful in their journey.
And I'm thinking about what is the fourth trimester. We know about the different trimesters and the different, not many, but you know about the different trimesters in pregnancy. What's the fourth trimester and why is it often overlooked?
Yeah, I think it's such a great question. Last time I looked, no babies are given, instruction manuals for new moms and babies. And that fourth is really about that postpartum period where the mom is having a lot of changes within her body and postpartum depression and managing the new realities of the immediate postpartum period and monitoring their blood pressure and bleeding and making sure we're talking about future family planning and breastfeeding and immunization. It's also an opportunity for us to plug in and begin that important journey for their neonatal baby, that they are getting the appropriate immunizations, they're getting their checkups, making sure that they're gaining weight appropriately, that we're talking about the proper way to have babies sleep, and so forth. So that fourth period is very important to the success not only of the mother, but of starting that new baby off on the right foot.
And, I think about the things that we've been talking about, of course, the numbers and what we're seeing and what good have we seen in the last decade or so in terms of improving these numbers and raising those rates and making sure that we're keeping more moms and babies alive.
Yeah, well, I think that we're making slow progress, but we really have to, look in the mirror. We haven't seen the success we'd like to see, particularly in the Metro Detroit area and women of color. And but I think things like this in women-inspired neighborhood and really recognizing that we must have different solutions. We must tackle unconscious bias. We must look at the social network that these young women have to help them be successful in a journey. And I think this growing awareness of that and realizing the importance of that are having things like Health Alliance Plan, really investing with a national company to help us along this journey, to help us reach these women in a way that we weren't able to before.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Michael Genord is the CEO of HAP. I want to say thank you so much for joining us on the Metro and just breaking the numbers down and letting us know what's going on and what we can do to help prevent Black maternal death. So thank you.
Thank you, Tia, for having this important discussion and raising awareness. And thank you for having me.
It is the Metro on 1019 WDET. I am Nick Austin alongside Tia Graham, and coming up, we'll discuss how and why our state is investing in nuclear energy.
Welcome back to the Metro, right here on 1019 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham. Nick Austin is here, and it's a sunny day. It's a beautiful Monday, a high upwards to 70 degrees today, Tuesday. Going to be partly sunny, a little chillier, 63 is a high, but still such a beautiful days here in Michigan and Detroit. Right now we're seeing, looks like we see 58 degrees. Nick?
Yes, Tia. And The sun, very powerful source of energy. Some might tell you the most powerful. But nuclear energy is something that we're familiar with right here on our planet, and it's often a contentious topic due to fears of radioactive waste and nuclear explosions. But now many are excited about nuclear power as a clean, zero-emission alternative to fossil fuels. The federal government recently announced a $1.5 billion investment to reopen Michigan's Palisades nuclear power plant, and 2 years ago, the state house passed a set of pro-nuclear bills. Mishmash host Shana Roth and Gongwer News Services' Alethea Caspin spoke with Republican Representative Graham Filler about those bills and Michigan's changing relationship with nuclear energy.
And I think a lot of people hear the word nuclear energy and just think, whoa, what year is this? What are we doing? Can you talk a little bit about why nuclear energy is a good thing?
Yeah, and let me give you the 1,000-foot view just to get us all started. In about 2019 or 2020, I was on sort of, I don't know, intellectual conservative Twitter, and they were all talking about nuclear energy and how the next 10 years was going to show that, well, or the last 5, new wind and solar are a nice thing, but aren't base load and are weather dependent and have short shelf lives. Why aren't we investing more in nuclear? We know the cost has been too high. We know the regulatory burden has been too high, but it makes countries more secure from environmental factors with coal closing down. It's incredibly reliable. It's incredibly powerful. And why aren't we investing in that? And I said, I agree with all that. And so I took some of those ideas and I turned them into a bill that became a law here in the state of Michigan, which just said that the state needed to do a feasibility study on nuclear energy. And what people don't know, and what I didn't know at that time, Michigan is and always been a top 10 nuclear state. We have 3 massive plants. We have one that's hopefully going to be back online, Palisades. We have nuclear engineering and nuclear physicist degree programs at Michigan and Michigan State that are exceptional. And at our peak, we were creating damn near 30% of the state's energy from 3 nuclear plants. We are a great nuclear state. We have good soil, solid bedrock that doesn't shift. You think about Fukushima and putting a nuclear reactor on a fault line. So all the factors are in our favor. And when I started talking to people, both Democrats and Republicans, about voting on that bill, I started hearing some really good things, especially from my Democrat colleagues. Hey, I was always taught that nuclear is bad and wind and solar is the only thing we can talk about. But to me, nuclear is as clean as it is and has an incredibly long shelf life. We're talking 40, 50, 60 longer years for a reactor. And I believe in clean energy, and I believe nuclear has to be part of it. I don't want to say Michigan will just be a great nuclear state because we have Fermi and Cook and Palisades. I want us to be a manufacturing state. I want us to be a state where you go and you get your nuclear physicist degree, and then you go to a lab down the road and keep your money and your expertise and your tax dollars and your family all in Michigan. So I think that's what will help with those bills. Rep. Wenzel's bills are incentives if you create nuclear energy, which is very prevalent throughout the industry. And that's sort of the basis of the package. What we did is scour the nation for what pro-nuclear bills are being run and took some of our favorites and put them all in one package. And that's how we came up with it.
So you've mentioned Palisades a couple of times. So this is, a right now shuttered nuclear plant in Southwest Michigan. Why, is this plant on the path to potentially reopening?
So I think there's a feeling that Palisades closed not because it wasn't pumping out massive, clean, powerful electricity, but because it required investment that the owners and possible future owners just felt didn't quite make sense. Wind and solar, especially solar, can underbid nuclear in the market right now many times. So they were like, well, we're just going to decommission. And then it became clear kind of 2 things. One, nuclear energy became a little more in vogue. You couldn't talk about it for a long time, I've been told, especially after Fukushima. And then number two, they felt like it might be viable. And if we didn't have Palisades back online, then I'm not sure that a lot of the clean energy goals that exist out there, either written into law or philosophical that are out there, are even remotely doable. And I think without Palisades, our grid here in Michigan suffers terribly. Reliability suffers. The ability to pump enough energy into the state of Michigan suffers. So I think there's a need.
I feel like one of the concerns that people have when they think of nuclear power plants and nuclear energy is the waste that can be generated from these power plants. So I'm curious about what happens to the nuclear waste that, let's say, the Palisades becomes recommissioned. Where does that go? Like, what happens with that?
Yeah, and just like any conversation in nuclear, you get the 10,000 foot view, and then I'm going to go into it. So, all the nuclear waste created in the state of Michigan since the 1960s, I think when we started, could fit essentially on one football field. It's small spent fuel rods that then go into triple encased concrete and just sit there. Now, the federal government had a dream on what to do with this. They were going to take it to Yucca Mountain in out west. And then in 2010, they stopped with the plan. And now all over the country, you have nuclear energy waste, very minimal, but you have some that just sits there. Now, this is not like The Simpsons, where everything turns green and three-eyed fish come out of the water.
All right, three-eyed fish.
That has been the most damaging thing. The Simpsons, wonderful show, but really damaging as we try to talk really openly about this small, tiny amount of nuclear waste. However, whether or not Palisades goes back online, Fermi and Cook create very small amounts of nuclear waste. They then sit it in the concrete encased sort of tombs, and it sits there until the feds decide that they're going to have some concrete plans.
That was WDET's State Politics podcast, Mishmash, which explored how nuclear power is expanding in the state of Michigan. You can hear Mishmash wherever you find your podcasts.
This is The Metro on 1019 WDET FM. Just heard from Nick Austin. I'm Tia Graham. And just a quick note, the Ford fireworks are scheduled for June 24th. It's the 66th year fireworks will light up the Detroit River. The show will start that night at 10 p.m., of course, weather pending. And later this week, workers at the Volkswagen plant in Chattanooga, Tennessee, will decide whether to join the United Auto Workers Union, and Mercedes workers in Alabama will soon vote to do the same. Those two plants represent the only non-union factories for the auto companies globally. Luis Feliz Leon travels the country as the associate editor for Labor Notes, the pro-workers' rights outlet. He told WDET's Russ McNamara this is the UAW's best push to organize the South.
This time around, the auto workers offered through their stand-up strike a national teach-in on worker power, showing workers across the country that not only can they fight the bosses, but they can win. And workers are fed up. We've been seeing it more and more since the pandemic that workers are standing up. They have been ground down for far too long, only to see their wages plummet while the salaries of CEOs soar.
So how do you see this play out?
Workers saw that even before they unionized, the companies responded to the stand-up strike by bumping their pay. So imagine what more they can win if they unionize. You know, in America, we like to talk a lot about the underdog, but America is really in love with the story of winners. And right now, the UAW is showing that it's a fighting, winning union. And workers want to be part of this stand-up movement. So, as you mentioned, workers are going to be voting this week at Volkswagen. Two prior elections went down narrowly in defeat in 2014 and 2019. This time around, there's real momentum behind the push that even the state politicians, or at least one of the representatives, one of the Republican representatives said that he was going to stay out of it, which was an about face that was a little surprising considering how in the past state politicians in Tennessee have done the union busting for the companies.
Yeah, you mentioned Tennessee Congressman Chuck Fleischman. He's staying out of it this time around. However, Alabama Governor Kay Ivey has been very outspoken about what she calls that threat from Detroit. Does it seem like Republican opposition is crumbling, or at least not quite as strong as it used to be?
Republican opposition isn't as strong of a factor as it used to be. From my conversations with workers at Mercedes and Hyundai in Alabama, the refrain that they go to when I ask them about the impact that their governor being so vocally opposed to the union has had under organizing is to refer back to the shop floor. Are they walking in our shoes? Have them come and work one day in the factory and then tell us what is in our best interest. So I think workers have really leaned into, what the conditions are in the plant. In Alabama, Mercedes was described as a destination employer. This was the place where you wanted to work if you wanted to move up. And for many years, the UAW was not able to make any inroads in previous organizing attempts. Like the efforts never amounted to even fighting for an election. But things have changed. After the Great Recession, the company hired in temps. Some of these temps were at the company for about 6 years. And then once they were ready to come on full time as permanent employees, they were put on a 2-tier wage system, doing the same job that other workers were doing on the line, but earning less pay. So that really has fed this sense of disappointment and anger at the company. One thing that a worker told me that I found striking was that even the anti-union workers at Mercedes hate management. So there's this shared sense of the bosses are not our friends. We have to fight them. And that's the kind of change that I think is also reflected within the UAW, more broadly speaking, right? We have to contextualize this, that Shawn Fain was part of a reform slate that was elected to bring the fight to the bosses, to be more transparent, to have members take the driver's seat. And we have seen that really transform, the way that it conducted its strike against the big three automakers. And we are seeing that also play out in how it's doing this new organizing, which is worker-led with support from the union.
So if these votes are successful and that membership grows, do you see that as spreading to other plants, other automakers in the Deep South?
Absolutely. Success begets success. From what I'm hearing, the election at Volkswagen is going to be a knockout punch. And that is going to carry forward to Mercedes, from Mercedes to Missouri at Toyota, and it's going to continue spreading. The key factor here is the workers. Are the workers ready to stand up? Are the workers going to take the initiative and talk to each other and say, this is why we need to build a union? In the past, there has been this conversation about, in the labor movement, do we do hot shops? If a worker contacts us that they're ready to file for a union, do we drop everything that we're doing and go there to rebuild our ranks in the labor movement? Or are we strategic and we go for places where we have a sectoral power? So for the UAW, they've kind of blended together both of these strategies. The shops are hot because workers saw a union that delivered for its membership through the stand-up strike. And they're contacting the UAW. But the UAW is also saying, okay, this is going to be worker-led. How are you folks going to build your committees up? So it's going to spread to the degree that workers take this mantle of leadership and continue to build this momentum. The union will then support that effort and it will grow. So you institutionalize this momentum by providing the research support, the legal support, but it's ultimately workers who are going to deliver the win. So I am hopeful that in Mercedes, in Volkswagen, we are going to be celebrating two of the biggest victories in half a century in the southern United States.
That was WDET's Russ McNamara speaking about the unionizing efforts happening among automotive workers in the South. This is the Metro.
And as the Metro continues on 101.9 WDET, coming up, we'll talk about Detroit's latest city budget and why it matters.
Welcome back to the Metro, right here on 101.9 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Nick Austin, and Detroit has just finalized its latest budget. And that really matters because every dollar allocated in the budget translates to physical changes for us right here in the city. The new budget totals $2.7 billion and included increases to the city's public services, more pay for certain city jobs, and a benefits boost for retirees. To discuss the budget, we have Councilmember Fred Durhal with us. He chairs the Budget, Finance, and Audit Standing Committee. Councilmember Durhal, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hey, thanks
or good morning.
Either way, I'm happy to have you here because the budget is one of those things that I think can be intimidating to some, but it's so important for what we do here. So let's get to some of your comments on it. You said the budget shows Detroit is on the rise. Why did you say that?
Well, I think what this budget reflects is kind of a return to normalcy, but just moving forward. When we talk about being out of bankruptcy now and 11 consecutive balanced budgets, coming out of one of the largest municipal bankruptcies in U.S. history, it shows you Detroit is now moving forward, rising from the ashes, so to speak, and continuing to fund the priorities for our residents.
All right, so let's get into some of the specifics. You're the chair of the Budget, Finance, and Audit Standing Committee. What was different or unique about this year's budget as opposed to last year's?
Well, this budget just included a little bit more resources for our retirees in this budget, but also some things that we had not done before. This was a $2.8 billion budget in this fiscal year. It incorporated close to about $33 million in amendments from the mayor's original proposal. But just some key things that came out of it, again, were snow removal, for instance. We added $1.2 million of one-time snow removal to create a grant fund for snow removal services for residents, for seniors and our disabled. There was funding in there to expand the Office of Disability Affairs as we focus on helping our disabled residents across the city. But there were also many other items within this budget, whether that included tree removal and help for residents, or just adding additional funding for affordable housing. And so just very promising budget, again, focusing on services. Some of the needs that residents have identified were priorities to them. We stayed up to the late hours, ensuring that we got it right and passed it, as they would say, in record time.
All right. Well, some things that we also heard at the city meeting on the budget were calls for more transparency. For those who might have that critique, what's your response to them?
I think we had a very transparent budget. I mean, as you know, when we go through our budget, we meet with each and every department. So a very arduous process, very long process. We're in budget hearings close to a month. So about 5 days a week from 10 a.m. Until 4 p.m. in the afternoon, we were in budget hearings for each and every department. Members of the public were allowed to participate in public comment during those budget hearings. But even prior to those budget hearings, I know many council members do their outreach to their constituents in their districts, as well as the mayor and their Department of Neighborhoods hold budget priority meetings to engage the residents and kind of rank priorities.
All right. Well, Councilmember Fred Durhal, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you for having me.
This is The Metro on 101.9 WDET-FM, your connection to news, arts, and culture that's moving the city and Metro Detroit. Don't forget, city officials are working to make sure fans have all the information they need to make it downtown during the draft. With road closures already underway, lots of traffic is anticipated, and one of the easiest ways to get to the draft are to pick and ride shuttles operated by Smart, Q-Line, and Visit Detroit. Park and Ride fan shuttles will take people from Wayne State, Bagley, and the River East Garage. For more information about the shuttles, it is available on the City of Detroit's website, so definitely take a look at that before you head out. Know before you go, Nick.
Yeah, and coming up, we'll take a look at the new head coach for the University of Detroit Mercy basketball team when we return. And that's going to be coming up right now because March Madness may be over, but Oakland University's unexpected win over Kentucky for many basketball fans was the feel-good story of the tournament. But not far from Oakland at the University of Detroit Mercy, the story was different. Finishing at the bottom of the Horizon League, the UDM Titans are hoping to change their fortunes by tapping into a Big Ten basketball veteran with a local pedigree.
Mark Montgomery leading the Big Ten in assists, 16th in the nation, as you can see. Because of the way he runs, you can see what? 13-0 run by the Spartans in the last 4 minutes. And they want to add to it. Montgomery lays it up and in. Judd Heathcote has to be pleased.
Last week, the University of Detroit Mercy introduced Mark Montgomery as the program's new men's basketball coach, and we recently caught up with Coach Monty to learn more about his insights and plans for turning the program around, beginning with a look back at his influential years playing under MSU's legendary coach, Judd Heathcote.
Great experience, Coach Heathcote. I always say he was a guards coach, where unbelievable sense of humor, but a technician of the game. Offensive minded. He's probably before his time in college basketball. Just playing in the Big Ten Conference alone, and then playing from him. He had so much experience where they won the national championship in '79. But while I was there, we went to a NIT Final Four my freshman year, and then we went to 3 straight NCAA tournaments. In my sophomore year, we were a number 1 seed, and if they had the clock situation fixed, we probably would have beat Georgia Tech, and we'd have been in Elite 8 playing to go to the Final Four, but things happen.
But Eric Snow also was a freshman your senior year. You started over an NBA starter. That's got to mean something to you. Do you ever give Eric Snow a little bit of ribbon saying, hey, man, I took your spot?
Well, I tried to tell Eric Snow the red shirt because the other backcourt mate was Sean Resper, who played at the time referee Bishop Borges.
Yeah.
And he was another NBA player, but Eric came in, and everyone knows that his brother Percy Snow was an All-American football player at Michigan State. But Eric was a little stubborn, and I think that's probably why he made it to the NBA because he became a very good player. But as most of us know, when you come in as a freshman and you have a senior that's already started, it's tough to take minutes. But I think if you look back in the record books, I think I might have shared 3 or 4 minutes with him when I got tired.
Did you always think that you were going to be a head coach ultimately? They say point guards make the best coaches, or is this just something that the waves parted for you? What's it been like for you?
When you're a player, you figure you're going to play in the NBA or you're going to play basketball somewhere. I did. I went overseas for 4 years. But then it seemed like when I was over there, I was kind of like a player's coach. Because playing for Coach Izzo, Coach and Coach Heathcote, they teach you so much about the game. And I think I always had a strong personality where I was telling guys where to go. I was recruiting guys on campus. I always thought I was a charismatic personality. And, in coaching, you have to be able to communicate. I thought I've done that throughout my career as a player and a coach. And believe it or not, I was working at Gibraltar Carlson High School with Mike Lajeunesse. He was assistant coach at Aquinas when I was a player. I went for the head coaching job at Carlson on the men's side. And I didn't get it right at first. And then the women's job came open. They gave me that. I never coached women. And then I'm just sitting in his office. He's like, well, why don't you go coach in college? I think that's probably your niche. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, went up to see Coach Izzo. He made some phone calls. I had 3 interviews set up at Bowling Green with Dan Dockage, at Central Michigan with Jay Smith, and believe it or not, with Greg Campy at Oakland. Dockage took Jamal Meeks, who played at Indiana. I went and interviewed with Jay. I'm driving back home from Mount Pleasant. All of a sudden, I get the phone call. Never made it to Oakland, thank God. But I know that Dwayne Stevens is happy because he became the assistant there. And, of course, he's the head coach at Western Michigan. But that's kind of how I got started.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of experience. I just kind of talked my way into the job, and I've been coaching ever since.
Well, I guess that does bode well for you, talking about communication, being a player's coach, and doing that as a point guard also. I love that you mentioned Oakland University, though, because a lot of folks here are excited about what some of our smaller programs that you might refer to can do in the tournament and do in basketball, especially with Oakland having success against Kentucky in the tournament. Detroit so far hasn't had the same success. One of the reasons they're bringing you in, Coach Monty. What is your strategy? What do you think it's going to take for you in order to get Detroit basketball on that winning track?
It starts with recruiting. We have to definitely recruit the Detroit metropolitan area and throughout the state of Michigan because there's good players everywhere. You can see the run that just the school down the street made, but other schools in the Horizon Lead has done. I go back to Butler. When Butler was in the Horizon Lead, I was at Michigan State. In 2011, they beat us in the Final Four. So it could be done at all different levels. Mid-majors can go on runs in the tournament, have NBA players that have unbelievable success. We just have to find our niche to get kids from this area, get kids returning that's in the transfer portal, and make sure that we're taking the right student athlete that fits Detroit Mercy. So, it's a lot of work to be done, but we can definitely get that done. It's a lot of mid-major schools within this state that has had success in the tournament and had success producing NBA players, but also had success of producing unbelievable student athletes that go on and do great things.
Deciding to make this jump back to being a head coach, I know that's where we all want to be, but also we want to make sure it's a good position for us. So why is the University of Detroit the right spot for you right now?
Well, to me, it's coming home. It's a good fit. I just had to reinvent myself for 3 years. A lot of times coaches are getting hired to get fired. I had a good run at Northern Illinois. I just know this state. I just know this city. I recruited so many players from this area. I have so many relationships with high school coaches, AAU coaches, prep school coaches in this area and within the Midwest. I wanted to be in the basketball conference. This is basketball only. I'm not fighting with any other sport. It's no football here, so we're the top dog. My job here is to get us back to the tournament. I'm going to use my experience from all my stops. I'm going to use my experience and my relationships throughout coaching to make sure we get back on top of the league standing.
All right. And I think people like hearing that. So in terms of what it's going to take to get there, I know the game's changed a little bit from, when you were starting out, a little bit more lower score, and you see all the three-pointers getting made now. It seems like a different game. So what have you learned over the course of all of your experience in all these places that you think is going to be able to help bring Detroit basketball back to the prominence that we had in the past, putting guys in the NBA and really making some waves in the tournament?
As coaches, you have to adjust. You're absolutely right. When I started playing the game, teams weren't shooting many three-point shots. Now it seems like it's a three-point shot or it's a layup. We want to play an exciting style of ball. We want to get up and down, and we want to put points on the board. But at the same time, the good teams, if you watched Purdue and UConn in the NCAA finals, you still have to defend, you have to rebound. So to do all that, we got to put it all together, but it's going to start with player development. You have to develop your student athletes to be good overall players. So that means they're going to have to be in the gym. We're going to have to be doing individual workout, film study. I always say if I can get a group of guys that will outwork, as coaches, we will out-recruit, and we get our guys prepared, we're going to have an unbelievable chance to be very successful.
It is possible that some potential recruits, some guys there in high school, are listening right now or will catch wind of this. So it's the dawn of a new era with you, Coach Monty, at Detroit. What would you want the recruits or anybody listening out there to know? And hopefully I'm not causing you to have any NCAA violations with this question.
No, not at all. First of all, it's going to start with a relationship. I'm going to have a relationship with the player that we're recruiting and his family and his coaches, because they have them for 18 years. We get them for hopefully 3 to 4 years. So we definitely have to touch base and have a relationship on and off the court. He's going to have an unbelievable staff around him. We're going to all be on the same page. He could come in for film study. We're going to make sure he graduates and he earns his 120 degrees. But at the end of the day, when they come here as a young man, they're going to leave as a man, and that's my job ultimately, and I'm going to get them ready for life.
I mean, I think that's what a lot of us remember. Not everybody's able to make it to the league, but everybody's got to do something moving forward and creating guys that can not only maybe make it in the league, but also do something in life, play some good basketball, have some great experiences. I know we're all looking forward to it. I hear the excitement in your voice, Coach Monty, so I don't want to keep you too long. But, Coach, thank you so much for joining us on The Metro.
Thanks for having me on.
That was Mark Montgomery, the new men's basketball head coach for the University of Detroit Mercy Titans. This is The Metro, and coming up, we'll talk about America's changing fashion trends.
It's The Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. Nick Austin's here. I'm Tia Graham. Thanks for joining us. And as a millennial, I will rock a pair of skinny jeans anywhere, anytime, even if generations below me call me old when they see me rocking them. They are a symbol of my youth, growing up listening to Green Day and doing the Dougie. Skinny jeans were elite fashion for a lot of us. And if we fast forward to today, they are no longer trendy, but what makes something lose its flair? NPR reporter Kai McNamee investigated how skinny jeans as a fad have faded.
When Mo Black was a teenager, you could only wear one style of pants.
If you wore anything besides skinny jeans, you were weird.
Black is now a 29-year-old fashion content creator. And as someone who grew up in the early 2000s, she lived through the peak of skinny jeans popularity. She says her style was influenced by the culture of that time.
I just remember a lot of the music that I listened to being the influence. I think Green Day was the first CD I ever had. Don't wanna be an American idiot. I remember waking up, watching MTV, watching VH1, and watching these bands that were so counterculture almost in a way. Obviously in a post 9/11 America, a lot of these bands were anti-government, anti-war, and I felt like the way that they dressed was such a symbol of what they believed.
The look was all about communicating the beliefs of a rebellious teen. That meant sideswept bangs, checkerboard Vans, and of course, jeans so tight they looked painted on. But now, skinny jeans are out of style, and the loose pant cuts of the 90s are back. So what happened?
We've been in a heyday of skinnier pants for the last 10 years, probably. It's just, we've started to see a little bit of silhouette overall start to get bigger, and it's just a natural cycle of things.
That's Ashlyn Greer. She's the founder and CEO of Fashionably, a personal styling company. It's not just pant styles that come and go. Shoes, color palettes, entire aesthetics. Many fashion trends have a predictable lifespan, Greer says.
It's traditionally started with designers and kind of, the people that are making the clothes for us to purchase.
In its first year, the style is invented by subcultures in music or art, designers experimenting with new shapes or drawing from the archives. Take grunge, for example, the subculture rooted in the 90s alternative rock movement of the Pacific Northwest. In 1992, fashion designer Marc Jacobs released a collection for Perry Ellis, paying homage to the scene.
Marc Jacobs took that and put that on the runway, the first time that was kind of seen in a mass way.
Putting plaid flannels and ripped denim on the fashion map.
And then now all of a sudden there's a Vogue editorial about grunge dressing, and now all these other people in mainstream culture start to adopt that.
Media and early adopters of a trend, like celebrities, influencers, your super fashionable friend, spread it to the masses. At this point, retailers scramble to produce the clothes consumers want. Then, once enough people catch on to the trend, it's not cool anymore. Until the trend repeats, and what's old feels new again.
Novelty is both the essence of fashion and its economic engine. It's what keeps us buying clothes, even when we already have more clothes than we need.
Kimberly Crispin Campbell is a fashion historian and journalist. She says novelty is what makes trends interesting to consumers, and as a result, profitable to clothing businesses. But Crispin Campbell says it takes more than novelty for trends to catch on.
There has to be a different emotional or economic or perhaps just social factor there beyond it looks good or I want to be like X person in the media.
Jessica Wagstaff agrees. She's a fashion content creator and writes a Sunday Journal, a newsletter about fashion theory. She points to the trend of quiet luxury as an example. After HBO dropped the 4th season of Succession, Wagstaff says people on the internet were obsessed with decoding the wealthy aesthetics of the Roy family.
We started to see people have quiet luxury hauls from fast fashion brands in order to emulate the overall style that we saw from people who were shopping at incredibly expensive stores.
She thinks that trend resonated with people because it signaled wealth and success at a time when people were feeling the economic impact of the pandemic. Now, let's take this all back to pants. The designers way out in front, the culture they culled for inspiration, and the moment we're in that made the big pant revival possible. If you look at what designers are doing in the 2010s, you see pants were starting to loosen up. In runway collections from Marc Jacobs, Comme des Garçons, and others. And Mo Black thinks the social environment was also ripe for experimentation.
My first time ever voting, I voted for Obama's re-election in 2012. 2008, his whole slogan was hope. And, America coming together, and it was our first Black president, and there felt a lot of freedom. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that the clothing started to mimic that.
Then, Crispin Campbell theorizes, as the reign of skinny jeans was coming to an end, pandemic lockdowns accelerated the spread of wide pants. People stuck at home opted for comfort. It's a tidy story. And of course, as Crispin Campbell points out, there's always more to it. It's not an exact science. But whether you're watching runway shows from your laptop or don't care about clothes much at all, it matters.
Dress is a form of communication, and I think we neglect it at our peril because we are communicating to other people whether we mean to or not.
And as Jessica Wagstaff points out, if we better understand what we're communicating,
we can give ourselves a little bit more peace, grace, and just flexibility to present ourselves in a more authentic way.
That was NPR's Kai McNamee talking about our changing fashion trends. I do too have my pair of mom jeans, but I still have my skinny jeans on hand. Still got them.
I don't own any skinny jeans.
You don't look like it.
Yeah.
Fitted jean man, that's cool. Classic look, never goes out of style. So, you're doing the right thing.
That was kind of my plan when I decided that would be the style. I was like, I don't need to just be cycling through pants. Hopefully I don't grow anymore. Keep this money in my pocket.
Yeah.
Look good, timeless.
Exactly. And that's what the type of pants you wear. They're just pants that are timeless. And, no need to keep up with the trends. No need to keep up with the trends. Or the Joneses, whoever they are.
You pick one good trend and just ride that sucker into the ground.
Exactly. And that's how I feel with the skinny jeans. Riding them till they ride off. And the young kids tell me all the time, we can tell how old you are just because you wear skinny jeans. I said, cool. I've reached that age.
I have that dream that one day I'll look at old photos and you'll never be able to know when they were taken.
With you, yes. You'll never know. Was this 2010? Was it 2024? We don't know. Nick looks the same, but he looks great in both. That's all they know.
That's the Metro for April 15th, Tax Day. You can listen to recent episodes online at WDET.org and make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
This show is produced by Sam Corey, David Lyons, and Jack Philbrandt, and our engineer is Nate Bender.
This is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Indeed we will.
WDET is supported by the College of Business Administration at University of Detroit Mercy. UDM is offering a new master's degree in ethical leadership focused on sustainable, ethical, and inclusive problem solving. More information at business.udmercy.edu.